Formulas, of course, are a core component of Microsoft Excel. It is important to understand that in 2007 there is a Formula tab. In the Formula tab, you will have the ability to not only create your formulas, but functions, recently used, and formulas grouped into each one of the sections. Keep in mind that when using formulas, we are referring to mathematical equations that have been pre-developed in Microsoft Excel. When working with a function, we're working with more complex formulas. Coding is typically involved within those functions. It is very important to have a good feel of what the most commonly used formulas are. These consist of sum, average, counting, minimum, and max. Notice that they all appear on the pull-down of the AutoSum. Of course, in the background you will find more functions which are unlimited. A question that may come up on the exam that you should be aware of may go something like, can you create your own function, or are you limited to the functions that exist within Microsoft Excel? The answer: you can create your own functions and store them for repeated use. It is possible to create code, have your function then appear in the More Functions section of Microsoft Excel. Take some time to review the different formulas and make sure that you are familiar with each of the basic types of formulas. It is a good idea to review the Office tutorials and the Excel tutorials when coming to these formulas. In this movie, we would like to talk about the syntax of the formulas and functions. Earlier, we discussed the difference between the absolute reference and the relative reference. Now I'd like to talk about the syntax as it refers to the cells within the worksheet. When going to a normal function, you will notice that I am adding the sum of B3 to D3. When on the worksheet, the only thing I have to cross-reference is just the cell range. We also talked in terms of naming that range. But what if I would actually like to take information that comes from the worksheet called data? If I switch to the data worksheet, you will notice that I set up a cell that has the overall sales in it. I would like to use this overall sales on my actual spreadsheet that is called names. Here, I'd like this number to come in automatically no matter what is changed. Notice on the toolbar that the syntax of this formula appears. Equal, data, exclamation point, A2. The syntax is the name of the worksheet, followed by an exclamation mark, and the cell that is referred to. In this case, 135,000 comes from data, comes from cell A2. If this number changes, when I go back to names, the number will update automatically. If I want to take the data of A2 and multiply it by 0.25, I can simply continue my formula in any way that I want to, and the new calculation comes in. The next example goes outside of the worksheet and brings in a formula from a totally different workbook. Let's again look at the syntax of the equation. Equal workbook.xlsx. Notice that that workbook is in brackets. After the name of the workbook, worksheet, exclamation point, and cell. Notice in this instance that the cell range is an absolute reference. So how would we do this formula? This time, I am going to go to the View tab and go to Switch Windows. The easiest way to work with a formula that's coming from an outside workbook is to open that workbook. With the workbook open, I can simply switch windows, see exactly where the formula is, and once again copy it into my worksheet. Let's go back to our original worksheet and say that I would like to put the calculation right next to the current 12.5. Once again, I'm going to type in equal, go to Switch Windows, go to Workbook, select the actual cell, and then hit Enter. Notice when I did that Workbook, Worksheet, A1 appeared automatically. If I go over to the overall company sales from this worksheet, I do exactly the same thing. Equal, this time go to the worksheet, choose the cell, hit Enter, and the formula appears. It is absolutely imperative to understand calculations when taking the examination. Understand the core syntax on the worksheet, within the workbook, and outside of this current workbook to another.